Hello, hello, hello. This is Gresh from the I Am CEO podcast, and I have a very special guest on the show today. I have Vanessa Gordon of East End Taste Magazine. Vanessa, it's awesome having you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
No problem. Super excited to have you on as well, too. And before we jumped in, I want to read a little bit more about Vanessa so you can hear about all these awesome things that she's doing. And Vanessa is the publisher of East End Taste Magazine, a digital publication based in the Hamptons. She is also a freelance journalist and the founder of the Hamptons Interactive Brunch, an annual event that takes place in the Hamptons every summer. Vanessa, are you ready to speak to the IMCO community?
Yes, I am.
Awesome. Let's do it. So to kick everything off, I wanted to hear a little bit more on how you got started. Could you take us through what I call your CEO story? What did you get started with all the awesome things you're working on?
Sure. Yeah. So it was soon after graduate school and after my daughter was born, I really wanted just an opportunity to have a creative outlet where at the time I was freelance writing a lot, but I really wanted my own platform. And I explored the opportunity just by creating a blog, if you will. And it grew from there. Now, how did it grow? So for instance, because I was still freelance writing at the time, I would have to go cover events, do interviews, etc. So as I was, slipping people my business card, it said East End Taste on it. So people would ask, what is that? So it grew from there. It grew very almost like a snowball effect, but it grew very organically. But I had no business entrepreneurial experience at all, zero. I had, little bits here and there of editorial experience from my internships in the city. But other than that and freelance writing, no experience whatsoever. So it was a lot of carefully choosing my mentors, if you will, or people that I would look to for advice. And they would direct me. So it was a lot of trial and error in the beginning. And I really didn't push it to a full-fledged business until 2018, or just under 2 years ago. It became a digital publication in 2016, but I didn't really take it seriously in terms of monetizing and strengthening the platform. But it's quite incredible when I've dedicated my time to it, how fast it has grown. Now, mind you, I do have, I have a family. I have 2 young children. So there is a limitation to what I can do on a regular basis. So, but when I work hard, I give it my all.
Yeah, absolutely. It goes to show you just how that focus really has an opportunity to really take things to another level. And I think sometimes some of the best things don't necessarily grow with, oh, I'm going to create this really great publication, but it kind of grows with you. It sounds like just kind of building and growing, and it starts to organically build like that snowball you mentioned before.
Certainly. I mean, I initially just wanted to focus on the Hamptons or Eastern Long Island region, but because I've developed even more of an interest in traveling, I've incorporated that now, and that's actually become the focal point. We do specialty food. There's now we just launched a real estate component to it. We like to see where the market is or what people are looking at. So we're doing a lot of research on the back end. So it's very fascinating to see where the coverage goes.
Yeah, and that evolution is always fun as you get to have different arms or so to speak, to the publication and grow from there. So I know you touched on some of the things you're adding on as well too. Can you take us through a lot of how the ways in which I should say you serve the clients that you work with, and what we can find on the sites?
Sure. So what's really cool about us is not only are we we have the editorial side to it, we also have that experiential marketing side with the events, with the Hamptons Interactive Brunch. So we've transitioned to, hopefully next summer, we'll be doing smaller events or making it a brunch series, having them be no more than like 20, 25, 30 people, as opposed to 150 or over 200 like we've had within those past 2 years. So I'm speaking 2018 and 2019. So have them become very, very specific focal points. So for instance, we may do an event that's only focused on cruelty free or vegan wellness. Then we may have a specialty food focus. So we're developing that. So what's so unique about us is there's so many different ways to work with us. It's not just the editorial side. There's the social media platforms. I also have my radio broadcast with Long Island Radio Broadcasting. I had a column with the independent newspaper out here, but that has since merged with Dan's papers, or Dan's Hamptons Media. So we'll see where everything's going, just because of what's been going on lately. There's a lot of shifting going on. So we're doing our best though.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely is a shifting environment, for every industry and every, area of the world as well too. So it's great to hear that you've been able to kind of be like water, so to speak, and being able to move and evolve and to change as things, start to happen. And so you might have already touched on this, but I wanted to ask you now for what I call your secret sauce. And this could be for you individually or your business or a combination of both. But what do you feel kind of sets you apart and makes you unique?
Sure. Is I think with us in particular is our strong connections that we've manifested over the years, and how we are so in touch with so many different entities that we don't even publicize. We there's so many opportunities to work with us that I never tell people, hey, it's cut and dry, this and that. I'm always willing and able to explore different opportunities and methods for working with us. And what's particularly so unique about us is our readership, is that we have about a 35-40% New York based readership, but we also have that international component as well. We are the only publication on Long Island that has such a strong international readership.
Mhm.
So, yeah, and particularly with our readership is within the UK, Ireland, Italy, and I think Germany is one of the top four.
Okay, that's interesting. Do you feel like, I know you mentioned that travel aspect, do you feel like that is in relation to the travel and where you've been able to kind of bring in that audience as well?
Yes, I mean that's what people are craving the most in terms of coverage. So every time I've noticed that I've had an internationally based story published, that always seems to do extremely well, and not necessarily because people travel there a lot or want to there is that fascination with perhaps that region. So
Mhm.
it's really interesting. Our demographic of readers, we either have readers that are aligned with the Hamptons aesthetic, that upper class,
Mhm.
who can afford these types of travel opportunities, and then there's ones that more aspire to that. So it's very, very fascinating.
That's awesome. And what I hear, when you're explaining that, is just really, I think you spoke on to really understanding I hate to call it the data, but just the information and who exactly you're targeting and be able to kind of be, I guess, in front of what they're potentially searching for. So by the time you're searching, it sounds like your content and your information and even the experiential events you have are catered to that.
Yes, yes. So we're always very careful to make sure that our content is aligned with our readership. In the beginning, it's tricky because sometimes things that I love,
Mhm.
people aren't necessarily interested in. That is what's so fascinating about this. I truly just wanted this platform to be expressing things that I loved, but now I've gone outside in. I'm tailoring literally now almost everything to what other people like. That is what's so tough, honestly. I mean, it's fascinating in terms of, people are telling me they want more upscale interior design. They can't get enough of it. They want more like kitchen decor. And I'm like, what? Well, I'm not, that's not my specialty. So now I've had to make it my specialty, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so important. Like, I think so many times, like in business, especially, sometimes we get lost in the things that we love. And while sometimes that is right in line with what people are looking for, sometimes it's not. And you kind of have to be able to understand this is the mission, this is what we're trying to accomplish, and how can we serve and create the solutions for that rather than get stuck in, oh, I love this, I only want to write about this. So I love that you've been able to make that pivot.
Yes, and we're doing that even more now that as we're focusing on that real estate component. So we have a lot of
Mhm.
fun stories coming up, and then the biggest aspect is juggling all of this. I mean, it's a lot, but so we're very, very limited to what we can publish on a monthly basis.
Yeah, absolutely. You kind of have to be very, sounds like very focused on the things that will move the needle the most rather than, always doing like the quantity from that aspect and having a lot of
That's
value.
it.
Yeah.
That's it. So it's so hard to explain to some people who are pitching us that we have I think now we're at 8 weeks. We
Mhm.
have an 8 week editorial. You know, we're out 8 weeks now,
Yeah.
and people have a hard time comprehending that. And I'm going, simple. It's as simple as we may have 10 or 12, 15 different storylines ready to go, but we have to get those in, and that easily is 8 weeks,
Yeah.
easily.
Yeah, well, I definitely understand that from the podcast world. You definitely know,
Yeah.
being able to kind of plan out as far as in advance allow you to kind of focus on and provide as much value as possible. So I wanted to switch gears a little bit, and I wanted to ask you for what I call a CEO hack. So this could be like an app, a book, or a habit that you have, but what's something that makes you more effective and efficient?
Oh gosh, well, I would not, I really can't think of anything specific, but what I like to do a lot of times is I literally just search YouTube. So say for instance, right now we are focusing on upgrading our mailing lists or our layout for our mailing lists in terms of the design. So honestly, what I do is, I mean, I love Canva, Canva. It's really my go-to. It's so funny when you kind of lift the hood, so to say. It's not really anything too fancy. It's all out there. Those resources are out there for anyone that's willing to grab them. But I will say this: I'm always on YouTube for just searching like ways to bump up your design, or do this or that. It's so fascinating. Everything you can find, all the free information, free, and I really emphasize free information out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I often say that sometimes I went to YouTube University or Google University because if you have the power to be able to search for stuff, there's a ridiculous amount of information out there. And I think not that many people go the extra, I won't even say go the extra mile. It's like half a mile sometimes, and just finding stuff and being able to drill down and learn how to do some of these things.
That's what I do. I just set the time because I truly believe in the motto of, if you want to get something done, you have to do it yourself.
Hmm.
Not something like I'm not a micromanager by any means, but if I want something done, I press the stop button. I am the one that goes in and looks it up.
Yeah, and that's so huge. And I think so many times that, especially when we're trying to build and grow a business, so many people say they don't have, this resource or that resource. But, I've heard this quote where you want to build your resourcefulness, so to speak, and you're really tied into that and figure out how exactly you can make something happen rather than what you don't have.
Right. That's it. I think that every CEO really has to have a grasp on at least a little bit of every little component. Um, because there might be something that someone that's working under you doesn't see, or you really want to make sure you're covering all your bases.
Yeah, absolutely. You have that varied and wide knowledge and information. So I wanted to ask you now for what I call a CEO nugget, and this could be a word of wisdom or a piece of advice. It might be something, if you were to hop into a time machine, you would tell your younger business self.
Oh gosh, honestly, for me, it would be just be more, I would say, savvy in terms of knowing what resources are out there, rather than trying to search for just go. Oh, so for instance, instead of um, how do you say, just going with, like, so say if you're looking for a service or looking for something specific,
Hmm.
going with the first person or someone that's maybe the least expensive. Think about that long-term investment. So for instance, in a way, I wish that I had asked people around me for resources, in terms of me just searching and just find someone. Okay, let me just go with them because they seem like the most reasonably priced, and rushing through it. So definitely take your time, and don't be afraid to be a little tough, and ask very hard questions in an interview.
Yeah, that's absolutely huge. And I think especially, with bringing people on your team in so many shape or forms that we're able to do, as I love how that to me even dials into your hack, because I think once you have that knowledge and information, you can start to ask those tough questions, because I think sometimes we have no idea
Right.
about, what we're hiring for, but we hear that we need to
Right.
hire. And sometimes that person isn't necessarily the right fit for what we need.
Right. That's it. Yeah, you don't even know. So I see all these things that, oh, I could use this, I could use that. I'm like, oh, why? What?
All right.
Sometimes I'm almost afraid to ask, like, what is that? If that
Right.
makes it, like, what does that mean? And
Exactly.
sometimes that's another thing too, is like, don't be afraid to ask those they may sound silly, but don't be afraid to ask those questions. We can't know everything right away.
Right. No, that's so huge. And I think so many times you have to have that balance between, being the person that's able to kind of build and see a vision and excel and execute on that, and being able to kind of have the humility to be able to say, hey, this is something I don't know. So can you explain it to me? What does this mean? And be able to kind of build your information from there.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
Awesome. So now I wanted to ask you my absolute favorite question, which is the definition of what it means to be a CEO. And we're hoping to have different quote unquote CEOs on this show. So Vanessa, what does being a CEO mean to you?
Oh gosh. Well, for me, being a CEO, it not only means being in full control of your company, but loving every aspect and really coming to work every single day, with an open mind, but also ready to work and get stuff done, and to really truly never ever give up. CEO, that's a huge responsibility, and you really have to embrace not only the role but every single component under you as well. So there's a lot that's entailed, but it has to all be worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think so many times we fall in love with one aspect of it, and don't love the other aspect of it. But you kind of have to love it, the good and the bad, because it all
Yes,
is what makes what you're trying to do worth it.
that's it.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, Vanessa, truly appreciate that. I appreciate your time even more. What I wanted to do was pass you the mic, so to speak, just to see if there's anything additional you can let our readers and listeners know, and of course, how best they can get hold of you and find out all about all the awesome things you and your team are working on.
Oh, sure. No, thank you so much for having me. I love I love hearing from people. So anyone is free to email me or to reach out to me through our social media platforms anytime. We can be found at East End, END Taste, on Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, and Instagram, and at Hamptons Interactive Brunch just on Instagram. And we are
Awesome.
EastEndTasteMagazine.com.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And we will definitely have those links and information in the show notes as well, too, so you can click through and find out about all the awesome things that Vanessa's working on. But I truly appreciate you and your time and all the awesome things you're doing. And I hope you have a phenomenal rest of the day.
Yes, you too. Thank you so much for having me.